Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 436, written by Breadspace3. There was me, and then there was me. I grew up in a very small, rural, yet scenic town. You know, the kind that lays dormant until warm weather brings cottagers and tourists. That summer, I was 18. I was involved with a guy, we'll call him Jack, who had a lake house nearby. I'm 22 now, and I haven't seen him since. The summer I was 20, I lived and worked in the city I'd moved to for college. I avoided my hometown, which was 3 hours away by car, at the time, only going back briefly that year for Christmas. But one day, I got a random text from Jack. "Hey, it was so great catching up with you today. I'd love to hang out sometime like you suggested. When did you say you were off?" It took a while to explain to him that I hadn't spent more than 72 consecutive hours in that town in almost a year. Apparently, I had called his name back when he called mine from across the street. We'd talked about the old days and I'd given him a brief life update, and what I had said about what I was up to these days included some information that he had no way of knowing. For the record, this wasn't the only time someone claimed to have seen me in my hometown when I was gone. It's just the most memorable. Case notes, file number 436. Right, so the first quick gut draw in this analysis of the story is that it would be a doppelganger. But of all the stories I've read of doppelgangers, almost all of them always appear to be near the one they're impersonating, usually to cause them distress or even direct harm. If they have any motive, it's to be creepy. No, I chalk this up to another instance of astral projection, especially given that this has occurred multiple times and no one who interacted with the other you ever noticed anything off. Doppelgangers give off a vibe, almost like an uncanny valley spookiness. You know when it's a doppelganger. Bonus file, written by Aveannie. My bald cat, the superior demon. I encountered a haunted apartment for the first time in my life. I started officially dating my now boyfriend at the end of May 2021, but before that, we practically have been in a relationship for a few weeks. During that time, I would occasionally spend time at his apartment, and he would come over to mine. Everything was totally fine, except for the fact that I could not sleep properly in his flat. I thought it was only because it's a new place for me, and I simply wasn't comfortable enough yet. Nothing out of the ordinary has happened during a time when we're not official. After the day when I agreed to date him, I went over to his apartment to stay the night, just like I usually did. That night, I could not fall asleep because of fear I had never experienced before. I was sleeping on the side of the bed that faced the hallway. The door was never closed because his dog needs to walk around the apartment. She sometimes loves to eat in the middle of the night or just lay on the cold floor when it gets hot. That night, I constantly felt like something was watching me from the hallway. Something that clearly didn't want me to be there. Something evil. After that, I thought that I was just stressed out and not used to the new place. And that, my friends, was just the start. Each time I would spend the night, it would get worse and worse. The fear was getting worse, and the only time I felt safe enough to fall asleep was either when my boyfriend was still awake or after the sunrise. I was watched more and more, and every day I felt like some scary creep wanted me gone as soon as possible. After 2 weeks or so, I was scared to death to even use the bathroom at night. I was scared to pull my blanket and look at the hallway. During that time, I noticed that his dog would never leave the room at night, which was really strange. She would stare at the hallway, get up from her sofa, bark at something, and then run back. She was visibly scared and uncomfortable, and her usual way of sleeping changed drastically. Cherry went from being a chill dog who snored quietly to someone constantly moaning in her sleep while constantly moving around as if she was having nightmares. One night when my boyfriend was not asleep, I went to the bathroom, which has tempered glass on the door. You could see someone passing by, but it would just be a silhouette. As I was doing my business there, I saw a very tall shadow go back and forth a few times. It was clearly not the dog, and it looked too tall to be my boyfriend, but I brushed it off and went back to the room. My boyfriend was laying on the bed, peacefully dozing off while watching something on the phone. I asked him why he got up, and he was very confused. After I told him that I saw someone wandering around the hallway, he looked freaked out. He said that he always knew that something evil lives here, and then described the exact same thing I saw. He told me about his previous experience with an overwhelming sense of fear and the way he felt being watched all the time. It happened occasionally, so he managed to ignore it most of the time. Just to clarify, I never told him about these things, so everything he told me freaked me out even more. When I was home, I got enough sleep so that I was pretty much full energy. But as soon as I entered his apartment, I felt extremely tired to the point where I could barely keep my eyes open. Then I started getting very emotionally unstable, having weird meltdowns that came from nowhere. It instantly stopped when I got out of the apartment. My things like perfumes would fall from the shelf randomly. One of my favorite ones fell down into the soft pile of clothes and shattered, which seemed very strange. My boyfriend started having work-related and financial issues that took him by surprise because everything was fine before. The strangest thing we've noticed is that all of those creepy things only happened when I was in the apartment. As soon as I'd left, everything was going back to normal. He didn't feel scared or watched anymore. When I came back, it all started again. After a week, I would get the same feeling in my apartment, being watched, scared to death, being unwelcome in my own home. That thing seemed to have followed me. Every single night became unbearable. If I managed to fall asleep, I would wake up from a terrible nightmare. I was scared of turning the lights off, just like in my boyfriend's apartment. I felt like I was going insane. When I told my boyfriend about this, he was even more terrified because it seemed like that creature, whatever it was able to leave the apartment and follow the person it wanted to leave. One day, we were searching the apartment, checking every corner for strange things. In Ukraine, many people are religious, so they believe in some sort of black magic and didn't find anything. However, we saw glue residue above the door to our room, over the entrance to the hallway, and over the entrance to the kitchen. When he moved to this place, he noticed that previous owners left their icons, the ones with Jesus and his holy friends, but he shrugged it off. When we checked them that day, we also noticed some sticky tape residue. It looked as if previous owners hung them in order to keep that scary crap trapped in the hallway. After going through the apartment, we realized that our fear got much worse when we stood in the middle of the hallway facing the bathroom and the restroom doors. They are separated in older buildings. We pretty much found the source of our horror's liver. It was right in the middle of those two doors. That night, I got back home, and my boyfriend texted me that he will hang one of the icons right above those doors because our people believe that these things will protect you from any type of cursed and scary crap. A few minutes later, he calls me and says that as soon as he touched the icon, he felt extremely sick to his stomach and scared like he's never been before. His phone lost the signal and the Wi-Fi stopped working as well. He was terrified, but still decided to put the icon up. After a couple of days, things were starting to get better. We didn't feel scared and watched anymore, but would still get chills randomly. The dog was able to leave the room during the night, but still seemed a bit worried. I decided to move in with him in July because it felt pretty safe at that point. Weird occasional chills aside. When I brought my cat there, everything stopped completely. She's bald and suspicious looking, so I think that evil thing mistook her for a more superior demon. To this day, we have no clue what happened and why that thing wanted to get rid of me so badly. The icon is still in the hallway, and we live a peaceful life now.